The best SCP games to play on Roblox. Hello gamers and welcome back to another amazing video here on ElBlox. There are some amazing games to play. One such game is the SCP Containment Breach video game. This is a horror game based on fictional stories from the SCP Foundation website. If you're looking to play some cool games, then hop on and watch this video as we look at some amazing games to play. Stay tuned because this list contains some of the best SCP horror games. Before we start with the video, however, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel, turn on the bell for the latest notifications and updates. This way, you will never miss another video. With that said, let's jump straight into today's video. SCP Anomaly Breach. SCP Anomaly Breach is a survival game where you have to do multiple objectives. One of the main objectives, however, is to escape the facility. Let me remind you, this game is scary and if you don't play the game, you are a chicken. Some impressive features about the game includes over 20 plus SCP creatures, and these creatures go around killing people. You can utilize weapons and other items to navigate your way through. Do check this game out for some real horror experience. SCP Roleplay. SCP Roleplay is, as you can guess, a roleplay game. Bear in mind, this isn't the RPG roleplaying but rather roleplaying. You can choose between a wide range of characters of your favorite SCP roles. In the game, we have the Class D prisoners, scientists, the security, some of the Chaos insurgents, the administrative departments, the internal security, and many more. The game also features various guns like M4, Glock, and more. Be careful of the SCP creatures though. These creatures can kill people. The map is pretty neat and the design is quite likable. The game is complete with plenty of quests for you to complete as well. SCP-3008. Up next, we have SCP-3008. This is also known as the Infinite IKEA game. Wander through the fast horror land of furniture located within SCP-3008. You can build a fast base and survive from the employees attacking you. Your goal is to obviously stay alive. The game has a single player mode and a multiplayer mode. The game's only objective is to survive, and as such, it's a pretty fun game. SCP Demonstrations Facility Site 101. SCP Demonstrations Facility Site 101 is another SCP game where you can experience zombie outbreaks. There are several SCP characters like SCP-008, SCP-173, and the horrifying Shy Guy known as SCP-096. Besides, you can also find Burning Man, Alligator, Lizard Mask, and Plague Doctor, SCP-049, or the SCP-106, Healing Slime, and Claw Monster. In short, you can find various SCP's creature here. You can play Class D Prisoner, Chaos of Insurgency, and Security Department. The last one is like Criminal versus Security versus Prisoners. There aren't many things to do in this game, not many objectives to compete with, but it's a fun game with all these characters. There are various weapons that you as a player can use. The best thing about these games is that you can randomly go on and kill people, but for the most part, it's a roleplay game. SCP-F Site Delta. Site Delta is basically an SCP game like other games on this list. This game also has one goal, which is to ensure anomalies and SCP creatures. Keep in mind that this is a role-playing game with a detailed architecture. The game features on this list mainly because of the details and other things that make it look so appealing. Go check this game out for yourself. SCP-R Breach. SCP-R Breach is a horror FPS game. Be careful and play at your own risk as you may experience jump scares and spooky fast. The game features various roles and jobs as well as objectives that are either to escape or to kill. The game has some pretty cool features and a variety of guns and abilities that you can use to the full extent. This game is heavily round based and every round the objectives vary. Depending on whether you're a trooper, a neutral, or SCP creature, it's a casual game and really fun to play. Become SCP Shy Guy. This game is pretty much like the SCP Demonstrations game, except for here you're going to be the Shy Guy. Do not shy away from killing everyone and haunting them to death. This is a fun game, but sometimes you might get bored of it and you'll want to check the other games on this list. SCP Tycoon. This is an SCP Tycoon game and basically your goal is to build the best SCP foundations in this dropper-based Tycoon game. The base is pretty big, and since you're just going to be building a giant SCP facility, it's just right for it to be big enough to host a lot of weird creatures. Those were 8 amazing SCP games to play on Roblox. Hope you enjoyed the list of SCP games. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the